Hey there, viewers. Sometimes warnings come too late, and sometimes they echo louder after someone's gone. Before her death, Kim Porter left behind a chilling message: "Please don't free Diddy." Now that message is resurfacing, and it's more terrifying than anyone realized. Let's get into it. Chapter 1. The mirror arrived without a sender. I was already 2 hours into my shift when the package came in. Night shift at MDC Brooklyn is slow like syrup most nights. Just the hum of the intake scanner, the flick of overhead lights, and the occasional buzz from the front gate if a late transfer rolls in. But tonight felt off. Not in a big way, just enough that my skin was prickling even before I saw the box. My name's Donnie. I work in inmate intake, processing, and mail sorting. Junior officer, been here about 8 months. I'm not some detective or tech genius or whatever. I just do my job, sort the mail, log the boxes, make sure nothing weird slips through. But this box, it didn't make a sound when it hit the floor outside the delivery hatch. No buzz, no drop thud. It was just there when I turned around, like it had always been there. And I was the one who was late. It was big, about the size of a small TV set, maybe a little taller, wrapped in brown paper that looked worn at the corners, like it had been passed around too many hands. No labels, no postage, not even tape, just folded up, edges tucked like a Christmas present from someone who didn't care too much about neatness. I rolled it onto the sorting table. Normally packages get scanned before I even open them, but the scanner lit up red and then blinked out. Fried. That hadn't happened since I started. I tapped it, unplugged, replugged, nothing. Then the screen flashed blue and said, "No object detected." I knew that was wrong because the box was right there in front of me. Should have waited for backup. I should have called someone, but I didn't. I pulled off the paper with my fingers, and underneath was this old, dusty wooden case. Looked like the kind you'd see in a museum, with brass corners and these strange carved shapes along the sides. Circles and lines, like old symbols or music notes I couldn't place. The lid creaked when I opened it. Inside was a mirror, but not like a regular one. This thing was thick, framed in the same carved wood, and heavy, not glass heavy, more like it had something inside it. The surface wasn't smooth either. It was fogged, and under the dust were fingerprints. Small ones, big ones, a few smeared like someone had been dragging their hands across it, trying to get in or out. There was something taped to the back. A yellow folder, legal spile with a thick binding. Handwritten on the front in black marker were the words, "Portus Humanus Testimony, K. Porter." And stuck right on top was a pink sticky note, short, just one sentence written in tight blocky letters. "Do not let him out." She already rehearsed it. I felt a pulse in my chest when I read it, like something behind my ribs just dropped. I didn't even know who she was at first. Kim Porter, sure, the name clicked a second later. Diddy's ex, the one who passed away a few years back. But this felt too weird, too polished to be a joke, too messy to be official. I carried the whole thing, mirror and all, down to Officer Prentice's desk. He was the supervisor on duty that night. Older guy with a belly full of stale coffee and a personality that sours by midnight. He looked at the folder like I'd handed him a high school prank. "Probably some inmate stunt," he said, thumbing through the top page. "Or some bored YouTuber trying to get a rise out of us." "Shouldn't we log it?" I asked. "I mean, it's not even in the digital system. No barcode. The scanner didn't even register it." "The thing glitches all the time," he waved off. "Just tag it and toss it in the to review bin." But that note kept itching the back of my mind. Do not let him out. Who sends a message like that taped to a mirror? Who tapes anything to a mirror and then sends it to a federal prison in the dead of night without any sender name, any mail log? Nothing. I carried the folder back to the mailroom with the mirror and set it down on my personal work desk. The room felt colder now, not like AC cold, like something inside the space itself had shifted, like I was being watched. I turned back to look at the mirror. That's when I noticed it. My reflection was wrong. At first I thought it was just dust or a smudge, but no. There was a shape behind me in the glass. A woman, tall, slim, long hair pulled back. She was standing just behind my left shoulder. I spun around so fast my chair nearly fell, heart slamming in my chest, but there was no one there. I looked back at the mirror. She was gone. I told myself I was tired, overworked. Maybe the shadows played tricks, or maybe the mirror itself was warped from years of storage. But when I leaned closer, I saw something else in the corner of the glass, sketched so lightly it almost wasn't there. The date: November 12, 2018. I didn't remember the exact day Kim Porter passed, but I knew it was close. I Googled it on my phone. She died November 15th, 2018. That meant this mirror, this file was marked 3 days before she died. I didn't sleep the rest of my shift. I waited until the cameras had cleared and I had the mailroom to myself again. Then I pulled out the folder. There were at least a dozen items inside. Documents, cassette tapes, clippings, some handwritten notes on hotel letterhead. I picked up one of the tapes. They looked ancient, labeled with thick Sharpie on white labels like something from the 90s. The one on top read, "Testimony, November 12th, 2018, day before I died." I stared at it for a long time. My hands were shaking. It wasn't fear exactly, it was something worse. Like the kind of pressure you feel when you're about to open a door that's never meant to be unlocked. There was no tape player in the room and I sure as hell wasn't going to bring it home. But I didn't stop staring. I kept flipping through the papers. Her handwriting was there, looped and neat, sometimes all caps, sometimes rushed. One note said, "If they erase me, play the 7th playback always knows." Another was just a single sentence. "Memory is a mirror," and I rehearsed the verdict. I didn't understand what any of it meant, but I knew one thing for sure by then. This wasn't a prank, and it wasn't a threat. It was a warning. Then maybe it had come too late. Or maybe it had come right on time. Chapter 2. She spoke like she knew the verdict. I've been doing transcription work for 8 years now, mostly court audio, inmate calls, some sealed depositions that no one's supposed to talk about. It's not glamorous, but it's steady, clean work. Pays just enough to keep me out of debt and out of trouble. My name's Malik and I keep to myself. No social media, no distractions, just me, the waveform, and the words. You listen, you type, you never get involved. That's the rule. When the package from MDC Brooklyn showed up at my off-site station, it came with a priority code I hadn't seen before. Internal review, flagged testimony, level 4 anomaly. Usually that kind of tag means an inmate made a threat against staff, or someone confessed to something bigger than their sentence. But this wasn't tied to an inmate ID, no case file, no docket number. Just a cardboard sleeve with one cassette inside. Taped to the top of the envelope was a label that said, "Kim Porter, November 12th, 2018, day before I died." I stared at it for a good minute before opening the flap. It didn't make sense. Kim Porter's name hadn't passed through this office in years. I remembered her from the news, a model, a mother, someone who kept things quiet even while the tabloids did what they do best. I remembered how she died, too. Pneumonia, they said. Sudden. Peaceful. But now here I was, holding a tape that shouldn't exist, addressed in her handwriting, recorded the day before she died. I plugged in my digitizer, slipped on my headphones, and pressed play. What I heard wasn't a journal. It wasn't rambling grief or confession. It was a structured deposition. Her voice came through like she was in the room with me. Clear, steady, not a hint of fear. My name is Kimberly Antoinette Porter. This is a personal testimony. I am not recording this under duress. I am recording this because I don't believe I'll be alive when the truth gets out. If this reaches anyone, it means either he's been caught or someone's still trying to protect him. She paused there, and I found myself holding my breath. I've heard hardened men break down during sentencing. I've typed up mothers crying over custody calls. But this was different. This was control. Like she'd practiced every word, like she'd memorized the moment. She continued, "There are files, flash drives. I hid them in places only my children would know to look, unless they were taken first. I don't know how much time I have. I know they've already started scrubbing." I watched one folder vanish while I was looking at it. They're not just covering for him anymore. They're preparing the next act. The tape clicked softly, and her breathing grew heavier. For a moment, I thought the cassette might cut out, but then she spoke again, voice thinner, closer to a whisper. The parties weren't just parties. You'll hear them called freak-offs. That's their word. The cameras weren't for fun. They were leverage. People were drugged, some younger than they looked, and some begged to leave. But no one left unless he said so. I stopped typing. My fingers hovered over the keys. I'd transcribed criminal cases involving trafficking before, but this wasn't like those. This was a woman talking about being inside the system without ever being seen by it. She wasn't accusing a stranger. She was talking about the father of her kids, about someone the world celebrated. I hit play again. The next part made the hair on my arms rise. I know what they're going to say, that I was sick, that it was sudden, that I didn't leave a note. But this is the note. This is the warning. If you're hearing this, it means he's finally where he belongs. Or they're trying to get him out, and if they are, don't. Please. I did everything I could to stay alive long enough to warn you. Her voice cracked on that last word, not from fear, but from the weight of certainty, like she knew what was coming, like she'd already made peace with the fact that no one would believe her until it was too late. I pressed pause and leaned back in my chair. I'd forgotten to breathe again. My palms were sweating. I copied the audio into our secure system, ran it through the auto-transcript tool, and waited for the usual text crawl. It took longer than usual, almost 5 full minutes of the buffering wheel. Then the file appeared. But something was off. The transcript kept shifting. I don't mean typos or glitches. I mean whole lines disappeared and reappeared in real time. The same sentence would flash in bold and then vanish, only to reappear at the bottom of the screen. One passage read, "Playback is the verdict. You rehearsed it, now remember it." Then that entire paragraph blinked out and was replaced with, "Testimony void, testimony void, testimony void." I saved the file manually, but every time I reopened it, the title changed. At first, it was just Kim Porter Statement, then Porter Evidence. Then, after a reboot, it renamed itself. Cycle 7, Testimony Accepted. I didn't change that. The system did it on its own. I stared at the name, Cycle 7. That phrase meant nothing to me, but the word cycle stuck in my throat like a thorn. It didn't sound like a court process. It sounded like a loop, like something was being repeated until someone got it right. When I tried to copy the transcript to an external drive for review, it wouldn't transfer. A warning popped up. File playback limited to approved nodes. Reflection compliance required. That wasn't a system message I'd ever seen. I cross-checked the server logs. No indication that anyone else had accessed the file. No malware, no external overwrite. It was like the testimony itself didn't want to be moved, only viewed, only remembered. I played the audio again, this time just listening. Kim's voice stayed the same, even, slow, like reading a story you already know the ending to. And the part that wrecked me wasn't the parties or the tapes or the erased folders. It was when she spoke directly to someone unnamed. You'll think this is your decision. You'll think the judge makes the call. But I've seen how the room is built. He's not the only one rehearsing. You are too. Then silence. A long, intentional silence, as if she expected a response. I looked into the dark window of my monitor and saw my own face staring back. But just for a second, I swore there was someone behind me. A woman, standing, waiting. I turned fast, heart punching in my chest. Empty room, locked door, nothing but the faint buzz of the old fluorescent light above. When I looked back at the screen, the transcript had changed again. At the bottom was a new line, blinking softly in red. Thank you for listening. You've accepted your role. I shut everything down. I logged the cassette back into the review system and flagged it for deep vault storage. I didn't add notes. I didn't request a follow-up. I know what happens to people who write too much down. As I was leaving the building that night, I passed the security mirror by the elevator. I caught my reflection mid-step. Nothing strange at first, just me in my jacket, my bag, my face. Behind me in the mirror, a woman was standing barefoot, and her lips were moving. Chapter 3. They tried to destroy the diary, but it printed anyway. Nobody comes down to sub-level 4 unless something's gone wrong. It's cold, always. The walls sweat a little, like the whole basement knows it's not supposed to exist. There's no windows, no clocks, no noise except the printers. Always running, always humming, like they're remembering something long after it's been erased. That's where I work. My name's Brielle. I'm a print technician for internal exhibit evidence. Sounds official, but what it really means is this. When something's too sensitive for email, too damning for a screen, they send it to me to put on paper. Ink is the last thing they can't wipe clean with a keystroke. I was halfway through a routine chain of custody print when the request came in. No warning, no pre-notice email. Just a gray envelope slid under my terminal door with a sticky note on the front. Sealed deposition, restricted handling, cycle 7. I'd never heard that phrase before. No case number, no sender name, just a USB drive inside and a post-it with 4 words scratched in red pen. Do not reformat, just print. So I did what I was trained to do. I shut off the external network, isolated the station, and loaded the drive. One file, a PDF, no title bar, no metadata, just a file mail that read Kim_Porter_deposition_final PF. I froze for a second. Kim Porter, Diddy's ex. I remembered when she passed in 2018. Said it was pneumonia, no foul play, but the media had circled like buzzards, whispering about diaries, flash drives, private recordings. Then it all went quiet, like someone hit mute. I clicked the file open. Nothing happened. The screen stayed black. Not blank, black. The kind of black that eats light. Then the lights overhead flickered once. A hard flicker. Like something had kicked the power. But everything else was still running. Except the printer next to me suddenly activated. I hadn't touched it. It didn't load any job. Didn't hit print. It started feeding paper, 1 page at a time, slow like it was thinking. The first page came out with no header, no court stamp, no formal structure. Just a single line. The camcorder, cycle 7. Active playback confirmed. The second page was written in what looked like handwriting, only digitally rendered, like someone had scanned torn notebook pages. I leaned closer. The writing was sharp. Too sharp. It didn't look natural. The lines were too straight, too perfectly placed, like someone was mimicking handwriting they didn't own. The third page was almost entirely redacted. Thick black lines across every sentence except one in the center. He told me not to write it down, so I drew it instead. That's when the next page rolled out, and it was a child's drawing. Crayon, stick figures, a woman with long hair and 3 smaller figures around her, kids probably. In the top left corner, drawn in red, was a man with no face. His hands were giant, red all over. The label scribbled above his head read, "Red Glove Man." My stomach turned. This wasn't exhibit evidence, this was a message, not a legal document, a fucking warning. The next page was a map. The house sketched with thick black lines, and beneath it, tunnels, branching paths, little boxes labeled in jagged handwriting. Sound room, playback wing, C7 entry, basement stairs. And one that made my throat close. Mirror room. Rehearsal site. I flipped the page. It was a courtroom sketch. But not any courtroom I'd ever seen. The judge's bench was round. The ceiling was mirrored. There were no faces in the audience, just white ovals where heads should be. At the top of the sketch, someone had written in faint pencil, "We are not trying him, we are trying ourselves." And then the printer spit out a list. File index video archived typo teller, C7 access only. 8 video files, each labeled with a timestamp and a location. 7 of them were crossed out, 1 remained. Mirror _room _entry _7 AV. I stood there, not breathing, not blinking, just staring at that list. Then the printer groaned, not a mechanical whir, a low, sick grind, like something inside was twisting, eating itself. The rollers jammed, the lights above dimmed again. The terminal screen blinked red once and died. I crouched down to clear the jam, expecting to pull out folded paper or a crumpled edge, but when I opened the cartridge slot, something else fell out. A photograph. A real one. A Polaroid. Not a scanned printout, not a document. Something real, physical, old. Kim Porter was in it, standing straight, her hair pulled back. Her face wasn't smiling. She didn't look scared either. She looked direct, like she was staring through time, through whoever would eventually hold this photo. In her hands, she held a torn piece of cardboard. 6 words, written in black ink. "I rehearsed it for you." That's when I felt it. The air changed, the kind of shift you can't see, but your bones feel it first. Something in that basement was watching me. Not a camera, not a person, just presence, thick and silent. I sat there for maybe 10 minutes, just holding that photo, the pile of printed pages at my feet, the map, the sketch, the child's drawing, the crossed-out tapes, the mirror room. I knew this wasn't just printing history. It was creating it. And maybe someone had tried to destroy that file before. Maybe they thought deleting it was enough, that burying her voice would keep the rest of us from hearing it. But it printed anyway. And now it's here, on paper, in my hands. And if I turn my head just slightly, I can see the mirrored ceiling of that courtroom in my mind, and I swear, I'm sitting in one of those empty chairs now. Chapter 4. Cassie's statement wasn't the first. I've worked evidence review for 7 years now, and there's a rhythm to it, most days. You scan, you match, you tag, you archive. Audio clips, surveillance footage, body cam reels. If it's digital and touches a courtroom, I've touched it first. My name's Jorge, and I run the back-end suite for courtroom 8B, one of the sealed federal chambers they use when a case is too hot for the main hall. But nothing prepared me for this case. Or for the night I realized we'd already been told everything. We just didn't know how to hear it. Cassie's testimony had dropped the room into silence when it played. The court air didn't move while she spoke. She'd named names, described the freak-off nights in graphic, sickening detail, told the court how he had her recorded, drugged, rehearsed. It was all there. Painful, plain, and real. But here's what most people didn't see. Her timeline didn't line up. I was doing routine cross-referencing gear, checking her statements against travel logs, security videos, badge swipes from private residences tied to Diddy's known addresses. When I got to the date she referred to as the broadcast night, I saw something weird. There was no video. The security schedule marked it as a full archive day, meaning we should have had continuous footage from at least 2 angles inside the Holmby Hills property and 1 satellite camera feeding to the mirrored suite. But instead of logs, I found a 3-hour gap. Not corrupted. Not redacted. Gone. As in, it was never recorded? Or it was, and someone went to extraordinary lengths to make it look like it never existed. So I did what we're trained not to do. I searched outside the primary directory. The sealed review suite is built with 2 partitions, the official evidence cloud and the backdoor archive, where orphan files end up when something crashes, fails, or gets manually interrupted. Most people forget about it, but I check it every night before I sign out, just out of habit. That's where I found a folder. No timestamp, no security badge, no metadata, just the name, order_uplink. My heart started beating faster. I opened it. Inside was 1 file, no format extension, just a string of letters and numbers followed by the word mirror in all caps. I ran it through a conversion utility, and after a few seconds a video screen opened. No sound. The first frame hit me like a punch to the chest. It was her, Kim Porter, walking barefoot down a mirrored hallway. She was wearing a silk robe, cream-colored, her hair pulled back, eyes forward. Her face was calm, not frightened, more like focused, like someone arriving for an appointment they already knew couldn't be canceled. Behind her, 3 women followed, each in similar robes, each barefoot, each silent. Dawn looked at the camera, but Kim did. Right before she reached the end of the hall, she turned her head slightly, just enough for her eyes to catch the lens, and when they did, I swear I felt it, like she was looking through the screen. Through time, straight at me. The hallway ended in a wide brass door. Carved into the metal was a phrase, Cycle 7, Jury Preparation Chamber. She raised her hand to the knob. The screen cut to black. I waited, thinking the feed had frozen. But then something typed itself across the screen in white text. No audio, no interface, just a message. She warned you. You wanted the show. I sat back in my chair. My palms were sweating. The hum of the suite equipment suddenly sounded too loud, like it was laughing. It was loud. I pulled the log, tried to save the file, tried to extract still frames. The entire photo glitched. The screen blinked. The file vanished. I mean that literally. It disappeared right in front of me, just erased from the interface, like it had never been there. What replaced it was worse. The screen blinked again and a new video auto-loaded. This one was labeled Cam_42B Live. That's the cell block where Combs was being held. And there he was, sitting in the middle of his cell. Silent, smiling. He looked directly at the camera. He mouthed the words, slowly, deliberately. You already watched it. Then the screen went dark. I didn't move. Couldn't move. But the missing link backed as much broken. My brain felt like it was trying to split in two. I remained Mose. My brain felt like it was trying to split in two. My brain felt like it was trying to split in two. We've all seen weird glitches before. Security feeds looping, timestamp errors. But this wasn't that. This wasn't a bug. This was deliberate. I checked the system logs. No evidence the Porter_Plink folder ever existed. No evidence that any footage played. But when I checked the printer next to my desk, a single sheet had ejected while I was watching. Just one line, printed in block letters at the top. Guess he wasn't the first. And at the bottom, smaller, so faint I almost missed it. She rehearsed it. You followed the cue. I don't know how long I sat there, but I know this. That door Kim was walking toward, the one labeled jury preparation chamber, I've never seen it in any court building, and I've reviewed evidence from 83 sealed courtrooms in 4 federal districts, which means whatever's behind that door was never meant for court. It was meant for us. Chapter 5. I found her voice behind the wall. I've been crawling through the guts of NBC Brooklyn for almost 10 years now. HVAC ducts, busted lights, corroded plumbing, rotting insulation behind walls that were never sealed properly. They don't care what it looks like down here. As long as the cells stay cold, the doors stay locked, and the lights flick on, nobody asks questions. Especially not down in Shoe. Especially not near his cell. Name's Deshaun, contracted maintenance. I wear a patch, not a badge. I don't make rules. I fix the things nobody else wants to touch. That's why they called me in. One of the ventilation shafts near cell block 42B, Combs isolation unit, had been humming louder than usual, the kind of vibration that makes fluorescent bulbs rattle and drives correctional officers half mad by hour 3. Nothing major. Probably just dust buildup or a fan belt gone loose. Or so I thought. It was late, shift change had just passed, and the block was dead quiet except for the occasional radio squawk from the CO on perimeter. I unscrewed the faceplate from the vent and crouched low, flashlight in my mouth. The air coming out of it wasn't cold like it should have been. It was warm, damp, like someone breathing too close to your skin. And then I heard it. Her voice. The woman's voice. Not through a speaker, not from a cell, from inside the wall. It wasn't loud. It was like a whisper chasing its own echo, but I heard the words clearly. Play the 7th, you'll see it. I jerked back like I'd been slapped. Nobody else was around. The hallway was empty. I waited. Nothing followed. No footsteps. No footsteps. No shadows. Just that static-laced hum. Like the walls were still chewing on something they hadn't digested yet. I climbed back down, popped the filter loose, and reached inside. My hand brushed something solid. Not metal. A stick. I pulled it out. A USB drive. Thick. Covered in dust and grime, but still intact. Taped across the middle was a yellowed label. T7KP. Rehearsal. I knew what I was supposed to do. Tag it, log it, submit it to the security intake. But I didn't. Something about that voice, something about the way it said, "You'll see it." It got under my skin. I slipped it into my back pocket and finished the vent inspection like nothing happened. Clocked out 30 minutes later. Didn't even change out of my coveralls. I needed to know what was on that drive. I parked 3 blocks away from my apartment, just in case. Pulled out an old tablet I keep in my glove box, one not connected to anything, not synced to any cloud. Plugged the drive in. There was only one file. No name, no format extension, just resert. _7. I tapped it open. No loading screen, no media player window, just the image. Kim Porter, sitting in the center of a room made entirely of mirrors. Not a reflection in the mirror. The room itself was mirrors. Floor, ceiling, walls. Even the chair she sat in had mirrored legs that caught the light in strange ways. There was no camera I could see, no microphone, just Kim. She looked tired. Not sick, not scared. Tired like someone who's been trying to get through for a long, long time and no one's been listening. She stared at the mirror in front of her, her own reflection. Then she spoke. This isn't a diary. This isn't evidence. This is rehearsal. For you. For whoever opens the door next. Her voice wasn't scared. It was steady, like a teacher explaining something for the final time before closing the book. Like she'd already said it in 100 other versions to 100 other people who didn't want to hear it. They think I don't know where they put the files. They think if they hide it behind walls and ventilation shafts, it stops being real. But memory doesn't need a room. It just needs a witness. She paused. And now you're it. I didn't realize I'd started shaking. The kind of slow tremble that climbs up from your gut when your brain's still trying to pretend everything's fine. Kim turned her head slightly, still looking into the mirror, but it felt like she was speaking straight through the glass, into the lens, out of the screen, into me. Play the 7th. Don't let them rehearse it without you. The screen flickered once. A low tone played, barely above a whisper. The kind of sound you don't hear so much as feel behind your eyes. Then everything went black. Just as I reached to unplug the drive, I heard it again. Not from the tablet, from the wall. I froze. Another bang. It was coming from the other side of the concrete. I looked up, from the direction of the vent. I jumped out of the car and drove back to MDC like my skin was on fire. Rushed into the service corridor, swiped in through the back access, and found the lead night guard. I told him there was movement near 42B, that I'd heard something strange, that they needed to check on Combs immediately. He looked at me sideways, but agreed. Called in a 2-man team to do a quick sweep. When they opened the door to Combs' cell, he wasn't there. No sign of a breakout, no camera glitch, no alert. The lights were on, the bed was made, but he was gone. And on the floor, face down in the center of the room, was his mirror. Not broken, just placed, like someone had set it there to reflect something nobody wanted to see. They cleared me out of the block after that, told me not to say anything, standard protocol, they said. And I saw the looks on their faces. I wasn't the only one who'd heard something behind the walls. And I wasn't the first person Kim Porter had spoken to. But maybe I was the first who finally listened. Judge received her final letter. It was a quiet evening, the kind I'd worked my entire life to earn, the kind of stillness that arrives only after decades of noise. I'd made peace with retirement. My name is Kendrick Walker, but in court they used to call me Judge K. 26 years on the bench, federal circuit, 2 terms senior judge before stepping down. I left clean. No scandal, no leaks, no questionable rulings that needed hiding. That's why the envelope on my doorstep felt like a violation. It wasn't hand-delivered, it wasn't stamped, it was just there, lying across the welcome mat like it had been waiting for me to notice. Yellowed edges, paper soft as cloth. no return address. But the date, printed in faded ink above the fold, November 14th, 2018, 7 years ago. I brought it inside without opening it, sat down in my den with the windows closed and the shades drawn. My fingers hesitated over the crease. Something about the paper felt wrong. Not old, not fragile, just deliberate. Like it had waited exactly this long for a reason. I opened it. Inside was a single page of handwriting, looping careful cursive, unbroken. Beneath that, taped to the bottom, was a black USB drive. But it was the name at the top of the letter that froze me. To Judge Kendrick Walker, in trust from Kim Porter. I had never met her, never spoken to her. I hadn't presided over any of the Combs hearings, and I wasn't on the bench when her name was last in the news. So why this letter? Why me? I read it, slowly, each word heavier than the last. If you're reading this, it means the files weren't destroyed. Or worse, it means someone wants him out. They'll call it a retrial. They'll call it a correction. But it won't be. It'll be the next rehearsal. She described a folder, Cycle 7, a sealed collection of 8 recordings, encrypted and distributed across multiple mediums. Diaries, mirrored room tapes, archived sessions. Not for the press, not for court, for judgment. I didn't want exposure, I wanted clarity. I wanted a room where memory could sit still long enough to be seen for what it was. She claimed she never intended for these recordings to be public. Only one of them, the 8th, was meant to be seen by someone specific. This file was never mine. It was meant for the one who closes the door, the last hand on the seal, you. I don't know your name, but I trust you'll understand what you're looking at. She went on. If they ask you to sign his release, say no. If they say there's no evidence, remember this. The playback is the evidence. The memory is the crime. At the bottom, no signature, just witnessed, not authored. KP. Held the USB in my hand. It felt warm, like it had been sitting in a human pocket just minutes before. I walked to my old desk, the one I hadn't used since I stopped writing bench memos. The computer there wasn't connected to anything. No cloud, no updates, just a plain machine with enough power to play a video. That's it. I plugged in the drive. The screen opened without prompt. No file browser, no play button. Just black for a moment. Then it started. Kim's face filled the screen, dimly lit. Eyes ringed with exhaustion, hair pulled back. But she was smiling. Weakly, but not sadly. She looked like someone who knew this was her last chance to be heard. She looked like someone who had already accepted she might never know who would listen. Then the feed cut. A new image appeared. In a courtroom, but not any courtroom I'd ever seen. The gallery was filled with mannequins, dozens of them, plastic, bald-painted eyes, dressed in dark suits, frozen mid-turn, as if they had just looked toward the bench all at once. At the judge's seat sat Combs, still, pale, dressed in something black and shiny, like courtroom robes sewn from nightclub fabric. He didn't blink. Then the camera panned across the mannequins, slowly. Each of their faces turned toward the screen as the feed moved. The air felt thinner around me, like the walls of the den had pulled closer. They started whispering, not like actors, not synced, just whispering. Overlapping voices, dozens of them, all saying the same phrase, at different times, weaving together like a thread. You rehearsed it, now sentence it. The feed glitched, flashed white, and ended. The desktop shut down. No closing screen, just darkness. I unplugged the USB. It was ice cold now. I sat there, unsure of what part of this I was supposed to log, unsure who to tell. I hadn't been on the bench in years. I hadn't signed an order in nearly a decade. But something in me knew that didn't matter. This wasn't about legal authority. This was about memory, the kind that never gets entered into record, the kind that waits, that breathes through mirrored walls, that hands off the next scene to the one person still willing to see it. I left the letter on my desk. That night, I dreamed of a courtroom with no door, just mirrors. And the only reflection missing from the room was mine. Chapter 7. We tried to free him. The playback wouldn't let us. I work in the processing unit at MDC Brooklyn, assigned to legal transitions. I handle the paperwork most people don't think about. Transfer authorizations, form reconciliations, release summaries, time-stamped verifications. I don't wear a badge. I don't carry a weapon. I sit behind a screen, keep my head down, and make sure the system moves forward. Until this week, I had never felt like it could move backward. We got the notice just before 6 in the morning. Diddy mate number 37,452-54 was granted a procedural appeal. A motion from the higher courts had made its way down like lightning from a fake blue sky. It wasn't a full acquittal. It wasn't even parole, just a transfer. Administrative repositioning while they reviewed his pre-trial detainment condition. Still, it was enough to trigger a release cycle. I was the one who received the first confirmation document, or tried to. When I clicked the file, it crashed 3 times. 4th time, it loaded. But the name at the top wasn't his. It was hers. Kimberly Antoinette Porter, witness file, cycle 7, not released. I stared at the screen for a long time, tried to reload the case number. The original form flashed briefly, then distorted. The data started sliding across the screen like water, like it didn't want to stay in place. And then the page just cleared itself. No error code, no history log. I called it in, but the lead officer just shrugged. "Try printing it manually," he said. So I did, but the printer rejected the job. Not jammed, not out of ink. It just printed nothing. Page after page slid out, blank, except for one thing. The corner of each sheet had faint, gray text typed in the same place. "You remembered?" No one else seemed to notice. Then the calls started. Not to me, to the parole officer assigned to monitor the outbound processing. I only overheard the first one because his desk sits near mine. He picked up, said hello, paused, then frowned. He said, "Ma'am, who is this?" Then he went pale. Hung up, told me the line was dead. No voice, just breathing. Then a whisper, clear as day. "Don't, not again." They sent 2 guards down to prepare the physical transfer. That's when things got worse. Every time they opened the door to cell 42B, Calms didn't move, didn't speak. He didn't blink. He just stared at the mirror on the wall. Not into it, at it, like he was watching something we couldn't see. The guards tried to give verbal commands. No response. They tried restraints. He didn't resist, just sat there, still, breathing, eyes locked on the glass. The logbook filled with notes from different shifts, all of them sounding the same. Inmate unresponsive but conscious, fixated on wall mirror, transfer aborted due to non-compliance. His hand fumbled against. That's it? The pain. No, the life. Despite the physical pain. Another note read, unclear if inmate is aware of room, keeps mouthing something, possibly rehearsed, possibly remembered, audio too faint. I checked the security feed. Normally those are audio free unless flagged, but for some reason, the playback unit in SHU started auto-looping. Every monitor, every cell block, every screen, the same video. Kim Porter, seated in her mirror room. No sound at first, just her face, calm, focused, same robe, same lighting. Then, slowly, she started to move her lips, mouthing words over and over again. If he walks free, you all rehearse it next. One of the new intake officers panicked, said it had to be a hack. Pulled the power plug on one of the monitors. Didn't stop it. He just kept playing, looping, on a dead screen. No cable, no input. Still playing. They locked the transfer request. The warden issued a freeze, said nothing was happening until Central cleared the footage, but by then it was too late. We'd already seen it. The memory was already rehearsed. I went back to the processing terminal to shut down the form queue. And there, sitting in the print tray, was a single page. One that hadn't been there before. No header, no footnote, just 2 sentences. He still plays it better than me. Yes, and I knew what that meant. He was watching her too. And whatever was inside that mirror, whatever she recorded, it wasn't just playback. It was preparation. We tried to free him, but the playback didn't let us. Because the truth isn't a thing that moves forward. It's a thing that loops. Until everyone sees it for what it is. Chapter 8. She rehearsed it. Now it's your turn. You don't remember ordering a package. But there it is on your doorstep. No label. No postage. Just your name. Written in thick black ink across the top. The handwriting is shaky but deliberate. Like the person who wrote it already knew you'd be nervous to open it. You don't bring it inside right away. You let it sit there for a minute, half expecting it to vanish if you looked away, but it doesn't. So you bring it in. The box is lighter than it looks. Inside, a mirror. No frame, no backing, just a pane of glass wrapped in crumpled paper, as if someone had been trying to keep it from seeing too much. The surface is dusty, cloudy, but when you tilt it just right, you see. Not your reflection exactly, but a room behind you that isn't quite your own. Familiar, but off, like the version of your room you only see in dreams. And lying on your desk now, though you don't remember putting it there, is a USB drive. Black, no markings except one phrase scratched into its side. Cycle 7. You hesitate. Of course you do. Everything in your body is telling you not to. But your fingers move anyway. You plug it in. No folders, no files to click. The playback begins on its own. The first clip is familiar. Kim Porter, mirror room, the robe, the stillness. Only this time, the camera pans. And you see yourself, not watching from a screen but in the room. A reflection in one of the side mirrors. Just for a second, but there. You shake your head, tell yourself you're imagining things, but the next clip confirms it. One of the hallway scenes, the one with Kim walking toward the brass door. This time, the mirrored panels show something new. Behind her, in the reflection, walking with the other women. Your clothes are different, your face is blank, but you recognize your own posture, your own walk, your own eyes. You pause the video. Only it doesn't pause. Healthy going. You unplug the USB. Still plays. The courtroom appears again. Mannequins. Plastic faces. Comes at the judge's bench, seated like he never left. But this time, the camera swings toward the gallery, and one of the mannequins is you. You're seated, frozen, wearing what you're wearing now. And suddenly it makes sense. All of it. The whispers. The files, the mirror that wasn't supposed to reflect you. This wasn't her confession. It was your script. Each chapter a rehearsal. Each piece of footage a cue. Each time you clicked play, you were stepping closer into the room she'd already walked through. You weren't just watching. You were remembering. And now, the final clip. Kim's face. She's not tired anymore. She's not pleading. She's certain. She looks straight into the lens and says, "You watched, you clicked, you whispered, you replayed. Welcome to your part." The screen flashes. You blink, and in the mirror across the room, the one that should only be showing your reflection, he's there. Seated, smiling. Sean comes, watching you, not through glass, through memory, through rehearsal. You run, you grab the mirror, you turn it toward the wall, but it doesn't change anything. The playback hasn't stopped. The screen shows your apartment now, real time, you sitting in front of your own screen, trying not to move, trying not to breathe too loud. You try to unplug the USB again. It's not there. You look back. The mirror is clean now, wiped of dust, but your reflection is still missing. The screen fades to black, but one final message types itself out, slow, methodical, centered. You are now reflection compliant. Playback begins.